In hip-hop, everybody wants to talk about the chains, the cars, the advances, but nobody talks about the artists who got rich without any of that. No major label machine, no executives pulling strings, just pure hustle, pure ownership, and pure strategy. And today we're continuing one of our most requested series, because after parts 1 and 2, after covering legends like Larry June, Young Dolph, Tech9, and Currency, the comments were flooded with new names. We're talking about rappers who didn't just stay independent, they scaled independence. They monetized independence. These aren't artists who got lucky. These are artists who built real businesses, real ownership, and real revenue streams that turned them into seven-figure earners without waiting for a label to discover them. Every artist on this list proves something that labels don't want you to understand. Independence isn't the struggle, it's the leverage. And in 2025, leverage is worth more than any contract. If there's one rapper who embodies the new era of financial independence, it's Money Man. His entire career feels like a case study in how the music industry should work for artists, not how it traditionally does. Money Man's story starts before the fame, before Spotify checks, before Billboard placements, long before music. Money Man had already made enough money off real entrepreneurship, real business, that he didn't need a label advance. That single detail is what changed everything for him. He didn't start rapping because he needed a deal, he started rapping because he wanted ownership. This is why from day one, Money Man self-funded his own studio time, his own videos, his own production, his own releases. No investors, no middlemen, no 360 deals. Independence wasn't just a branding strategy, it was the foundation of his career. In 2017, he briefly signed with Cash Money Records, and this is where the legend grows. Most artists get stuck in those contracts. They can't get out, they lose leverage instantly. But Money Man did something nobody had seen before. He bought himself out of his Cash Money contract using Bitcoin. The man paid his exit fee in digital assets and walked away fully independent, turning what looked like a major label signing into a temporary licensing deal. And just a year later, the decision paid off when Bitcoin surged in value. He basically got free marketing, free distribution, and then left with more money than he put in. This is why Money Man is a millionaire. Not because he had the biggest radio hits, not because he had some label backing, but because he understood finance. He continued dropping tapes independently. Paranoia, Grow God, Epidemic, State of Emergency, many of which charted without the machine behind them. He built a following based on real lifestyle content. Crypto, fitness, health, financial literacy. He became a trusted brand in a way most rappers never do. Money Man is a multi-millionaire not because the label system made him one, but because he used the label system as a short-term tool and never needed to be owned by it. He is the modern definition of what independent money looks like in hip-hop. If Money Man represents the new blueprint, Slim Thug represents the classic one. He's the embodiment of move smart, move quiet, keep the money. And the wildest part, Slim Thug became a millionaire before most rappers ever signed their first deal. Back in the early 2000s, Slim Thug was already eating off the Houston mixtape circuit. But instead of waiting to get signed, he started studying the business side of music. He realized something most young artists don't. The money isn't in being signed. It's in owning as much of your music as possible. So he formed Boss Hog Outlaws, built his own distribution network, pressed his own CDs, and sold them directly out of trunks. But strategically. He had workers, he had territories, he had margins. It wasn't a hustle. It was a business. By the time major labels came calling, Slim Thug didn't need a traditional deal. He negotiated from power, and instead of handing over his whole career, he worked out a joint venture deal with Interscope that let him keep a huge level of ownership and control. But here's the thing. Even while he had label support for a moment, his real money never came from the rap industry. It came from what he did outside the booth. Slim Thug took his early rap money and invested it into real estate, construction companies, land acquisitions, commercial properties, car dealerships, local community developments. He became a Houston business figure, not just a Houston rapper. He owns blocks, not singles. By the time Already Platinum dropped, Slim Thug was already a millionaire, not because of the album, but because of the investments he started making long before it. He talked openly about how he lived before his means, drove regular cars, and saved money instead of buying jewelry. This allowed him to stay fully independent long-term. Slim Thug is proof that independence is not just a music strategy, it's a lifestyle strategy, and very few artists executed it at his level. When we talk about independent moguls in hip-hop, there's a name that sits in its own category. A name that doesn't just belong on this list. It dominates it. Berner. Not only is Berner one of the most successful independent rappers ever, he's one of the most successful entrepreneur artists in the world. Period. People forget he started out hustling CDs in San Francisco, working with the Jackal, putting up independent tapes with no backing, and building his brand from the ground up. But Berner wasn't just building a fan base. He was building a lifestyle brand before the word brand became the industry trend. He dropped music constantly, 40 plus projects, never waiting for permission, never slowing down. But the turning point came when he started entering the legal cannabis industry early, long before celebrities realized it was profitable. He co-founded Cookies, which started as a streetwear concept, then became a dispensary brand, then became an entire global company. Today, Cookies is valued in the hundreds of millions, with some analysts estimating it passed the billion-dollar mark when you factor all licensing deals, partnerships, and retail locations. And Berner owns it. Not a percentage, not a piece. He owns the company he built from scratch. He leveraged his music to promote Cookies and leveraged Cookies to grow his music. That creates a feedback loop most artists never achieve. Berner is a millionaire many times over because he did everything artists claim they want to do. Stayed independent, owned everything, reinvested his rap money into a real business, built a brand bigger than his music. And what's so powerful is that Berner didn't need radio hits, chart placements, or major deals. He used albums as marketing tools. Music was his engine, business was the destination. Out of everyone in this series, Berner might be the most financially successful independent rapper ever. Philthy Rich was one of the most underrated independent runs in West Coast history. While his name doesn't always come up in mainstream conversations, inside the industry, everyone knows Philthy built a real empire without major label help. He represents the raw, gritty hustle of the Bay Area music scene, a place where independence isn't just common, it's the standard, and Philthy embraced that culture fully. Starting in East Oakland, he dropped project after project after project, building a catalog so large that streaming alone brings in serious money. But the key to Philthy's success is volume and consistency. He never stopped releasing. Some years, he was dropping 3, 4, even 5 projects. And because he owned the rights to pretty much everything, the checks didn't have to be split 10 different ways. He built relationships with producers and videographers early, allowing him to control costs. He invested in his own studio setup. He created FOD, that's Funk or Die Entertainment, a label that became a launching pad for younger artists in Oakland. Philthy Rich wasn't just making money off his own music, he was now earning from other artists' success too. On top of that, Philthy diversified like a real businessman. Clothing lines, real estate, car rentals, artist management, local businesses in Oakland. Philthy is the definition of a quiet millionaire. The kind of artist you don't see flashing numbers online, but who owns enough assets to be financially independent forever. In terms of independence, Philthy's career is a masterclass in building a deep catalog, controlling your distribution, and using music as the foundation for long-term financial moves. Chief Keef might be the most influential rapper of the last 15 years, not just musically, but in how he navigated the industry. People think Chief Keef fell off because they're only looking at mainstream visibility. The truth is, Chief Keef is one of the highest earning independent rappers of his generation, and he did it by stepping away from the traditional system entirely. Let's rewind. When Chief Keef dropped I Don't Like and Love Sosa, he became the face of a cultural moment. Every label wanted him. He eventually signed a big deal with Interscope, but here's the part most people forget. That deal didn't last. Interscope dropped him in 2014. For most artists, that would have been the end. But for Chief Keef, it was the beginning of his true independence era. He went fully DIY, recording in home studios, producing his own beats, dropping mixtapes without marketing budgets, and flooding the internet with music. The industry didn't understand it at the time, but he was building the blueprint for SoundCloud-era independence. Direct-to-fan releases, viral content without gatekeepers, self-produced music, cult community, low overhead, huge catalog. And then comes the real financial win. Chief Keef owns one of the deepest streaming catalogs in modern rap. Songs like Love Sosa, Hate Being Sober, Earned It, Don't Like still stream millions every month. And because Keef operates independently, the revenue goes directly to him and his imprint. He also invested early into production, producing for other artists, building his producer brand, and collecting publishing checks outside of his own music. And as drill went global, Chief Keef's influence became even more valuable. Festivals pay top dollar to book him. International shows still sell out, and his catalog is evergreen. It gets rediscovered every year by younger fans. Chief Keef didn't fall off. He just stopped playing the industry's game and started playing his own. And financially, he won. Freddie Gibbs is the perfect example of why independence doesn't always mean never sign a deal. Sometimes independence is the pathway to negotiating a deal that actually benefits the artist. Freddie Gibbs started his career with a traditional label deal with Interscope and got dropped before his debut album ever saw the light of day. For a lot of artists, that's the moment where the industry door permanently closes. But Gibbs didn't quit. He went fully independent, rebuilt himself from the ground up, and turned every setback into leverage. He released mixtapes that are now considered classics: Babyface Killer, Cold Day in Hell, ESGN, Pinata with Madlib, Bandana, Shadow of a Doubt. Gibbs built a reputation built on skill, not marketing. He became known as one of the best rappers alive, not because the machine pushed him, but because he was dropping elite projects independently and partnering with producers like Madlib and Alchemist, who amplified his artistry. This is where the independent strategy becomes genius. Instead of signing early, Gibbs waited. He held on to his brand ownership, his catalog leverage, and his creative control until the industry was forced to see him as an equal, not a rookie. By the time he signed with Warner Records in 2020, the deal looked totally different than a typical artist contract. He already had a loyal fan base. He already had critically acclaimed albums. He owned his image and brand. He didn't need an advance to survive. The label wasn't developing him. They were partnering with him. This is why his label experience actually worked. With Warner, he released Alfredo, which became one of the best hip-hop albums of the decade, earned Grammy nominations, and elevated his profile worldwide. And because he came into that deal with leverage, his terms were significantly better than 99% of artist deals. Freddie Gibbs is the rare example of someone who used independence the right way, not as a rejection of the industry, but as a way to negotiate from power instead of desperation. His career is proof that independence is not always the destination. It's sometimes the fuel that gets you to a better destination. Every artist we cover today proves a different principle of financial independence in hip-hop. Money Man proved that if you control your money, you never need to sell your masters. Slim Thug proved that good investments will outlast every hit single. Berner proved that the biggest business in hip-hop doesn't have to be music at all. Philthy Rich proved that owning your catalog beats chasing radio. Chief Keef proved that leaving the industry can make you richer than staying in it. And Freddie Gibbs proved that independence is an anti-label. It's how you negotiate a better label deal. All of these artists took different routes, but every route led to the same destination: ownership, longevity, and wealth. And this is why these videos matter, because record labels will never teach artists how to build wealth. They'll teach you how to build hype, how to build marketing cycles, how to build numbers that look good on paper, but don't build anything in your bank account. But these artists, they built something that actually lasts. If you want part 4, you already know what to do. Drop the names in the comments. Tell me who you want next, whether it's underground legends, modern indie stars, veterans who built empires, or upcoming artists quietly getting rich without the mainstream ever noticing. This is Money and Music, where hip-hop meets business, and the business finally makes sense.